Today I want to talk about something that could have changed the sequel trilogy and vastly improved Rey's character and the story as a whole. But before we get into that, if you're a fan of our videos, please like our content and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out and gives us the opportunity of creating more content for you. And be warned, we're going to be spoiling the sequel trilogy here, so let's get into it. So the character of Rey in the sequel trilogy had a very tough task. As the protagonist of the trilogy, we as an audience had to be invested in our main character and feel attached to what trials and challenges they had to get through in the story. Most importantly, we needed to understand the meaning and the point of going on this journey with a brand new character. Now, after Rise of Skywalker, I remember leaving the theater and not feeling anything for the characters and the story. It all felt a little hollow to me, and the eventual revelation that Rey was the child of Palpatine's cloned son felt like a retcon and a rebuff from what Rian Johnson just established in The Last Jedi. It's clear that there wasn't an organized narrative structure laid down for the sequel trilogy and its characters. Now, one example of where they were pretty successful at introducing a new character into an established universe was the movie Creed. It wasn't a reboot, but more of a continuation of the story we saw in the Rocky films, through the lens of Creed's estranged son. So while Michael B. Jordan's character was a new protagonist, we were anchored into the character based off of who he was and where he came from. Now, I thought that Ryan Coogler did a phenomenal job writing this script, and the movie's still one of my favorites to this day. So how could they have tweaked Rey's character and improved the story? There is one change that could have potentially improved the story and made our main protagonist more interesting. Now, George Lucas had mentioned in many interviews that Star Wars is a story of Anakin Skywalker. We see the story of his fall in the prequels, and we see his redemption through the love and sacrifice of his son, Luke Skywalker, in the original trilogy. We had two trilogies that focused on this character, and then that character was completely absent in the third trilogy. So what if we learned that Rey was in fact the reincarnation of Anakin Skywalker? This would give the character of Rey more meaning and shift the story of the sequel trilogy to one of redemption for the main character of Star Wars. It not only continues a narrative thread throughout the trilogies, but it also brings in a new element to the will of the Force. Perhaps it's the will of the Force for the Chosen One to return and truly bring balance. We still could have had Palpatine return via essence transfer, which is how his consciousness was transferred to a clone on Exegol. The Force would respond to this darkness persisting by reincarnating Anakin, where one side fights against the will of the Force, the other responds to meet this as a counterbalance. This would explain why Anakin didn't show up as a Force ghost to Luke, and improves upon Ben Solo's fall by having him try to commune with his grandfather only to be left in silence. It would also further connect Kylo Ren and Rey and explain why Rey was naturally much stronger in the Force than Kylo, who was trained for most of his life, first under Luke and then Snoke. This would also make us feel connected to Rey as a character because we would have been anchored in Anakin's story coming full circle. As George Lucas has mentioned before, the story is supposed to mirror itself. This final sequel trilogy could have taken us on the final journey of Anakin and the struggles the Chosen One faces in choosing the light side and truly redeeming themselves by the end, completing the saga in a meaningful way. This would also explain the connection we see in The Force Awakens between Leia and Rey. I always thought when they hugged at the end that there was something unseen that they both just knew, just like Leia knew deep down that Luke was her brother. She just knew that Rey was family. This would have given us a deeper connection with Luke as well, giving Anakin's children closure and a way for our main protagonist to play an important role in Luke and Leia's story. This small change would refocus our story on Anakin and give each trilogy its own arc in the fall, the salvation, and the redemption of the Chosen One, all while connecting the characters we know and love to the new. So those are my thoughts on the tiny change in Rey's character that could have made a huge difference to me in this sequel trilogy. What are your thoughts? Would you rather see something like that, or did you enjoy the sequel trilogy as it played out? Leave your comments below, and all opinions are welcome. Thank you for joining me on this video from us here at Fatherly Fandom, and if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and as always, from our families to yours, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.